This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Did you know that Rudy Giuliani has a podcast and a video podcast live that he does with various guests like Steve Bannon and Carrie Lake? Well, I didn't either, but it's called America's Mayor. Half of it is just a grift where he constantly interjects ads in order to raise money for himself and all of his legal problems, I assume, much like his boss, Donald Trump. But in the middle of it, usually after about an hour or so of rambling on, Rudy Giuliani, who has lost his fastball and past his prime, as people like to say these days, will be very self-revealing. And in this clip we're going to show you now that just popped out last week, he admits to conducting and implementing a voter suppression plan to keep the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx vote down in New York in 1993 so he could win the mayoral race. How ironic that that's being disclosed and admitted to and confided in America on a show called America's Mayor. Well, America's Mayor apparently has no problems now shooting the shit with others and telling them that he committed voter fraud and voter suppression tactics in order to win his mayoral race. He talked about how using a group that he created, that he made up, called the Voter Integrity Committee. This is what the Republicans always do, whether they're DeSantis or Trump. They come up with these highfalutin, highbrow sounding things that nobody could object to. Who could object to voter integrity? And then, of course, it's Orwellian because it's the exact opposite of what it claims to be. But he created a voter integrity committee. He put Randy Levine, who is now, you may know, is the president of the New York Yankees, at the time was very involved with politics in New York, put him in charge of that committee, and they spent money to put up posters and flyers in primarily heavily Hispanic neighborhoods in New York who tend to vote Democratic, like in Washington Heights, and in the Bronx and in other places, and convinced them and scared the crap out of them not to go to the polls by threatening that the Federal Immigration Service at the time, the INS, would be checking voters' citizenship status and voting status, that immigration, federal police, if you will, would be checking your documents to make sure that you're legally in this country at the time to vote. Now, he claimed on the podcast, we're going to watch it now, that all he was doing is suppressing the illegal vote, that if people weren't properly in this country and not citizens, they couldn't vote anyway. But he went beyond that. Let's run the clip now.
One little dirty trick
in New York. Dirty trick in New York. I'm so shocked.
Played by Republicans. By Republicans.
Republicans don't know dirty tricks.
How about this one?
Okay, give it
to me. So they went through East Harlem, which is all Hispanic, and they gave out little cards, and the card said, if you come to vote, make sure you have your green card because INS are picking up illegals.
Oh my gosh.
So they spread it all over the Hispanic. Yeah. After the election, the Clinton Civil Rights Division investigated me. I was on vacation after the election, and I get a call from my lawyer, Denny Young, and he says, Rudy, we got the Justice Department's investigating us. Janet Reno's coming after us. We violated civil rights. I said, Jenny, you're a lawyer. Think about it. What civil rights do we violate? They don't have civil rights. But all we did is prevent people who can't vote from voting. Yeah. Maybe we tricked them, but tricking is not a crime. Oh, and in those days, we didn't have crazy prosecutors. Nowadays, they probably prosecute you for it, even though it isn't. And that's the way we kept down the Hispanic vote. This is what we don't do.
Not the legals vote, the illegal vote.
Yeah, people don't have the right to vote.
The illegal vote.
Yeah. The Hispanic illegal vote, which takes away the Hispanic legal vote.
So there you have Steve Bannon egging on Giuliani, slapping him on the back and chuckling, with Carrie Lake, who's also on the fascist side of the wing of the Republican Party, chuckling about it, that Giuliani used dirty tricks, that even Republicans use dirty tricks. Well, of course Republicans use dirty tricks, Rudy. They invented it. The term is associated with Richard Nixon and Watergate and the dirty tricks of Tricky Dick. That's where it came from. It didn't come from Democrats. Okay, so you use dirty tricks to suppress the vote. And then you claim, then you realize as it was coming out of your mouth and landing on the table and on the airwaves that maybe this isn't such a great thing as the Department of Justice watches everything that you say right now, and Phony Willis in Georgia as they look at whether to prosecute you for crimes related to an election. So he said, well, I'm just suppressing the illegal vote. But that's not what the Department of Justice under Clinton looked at and made people aware of during that election. In fact, the Department of Justice, and we'll put it up now, back in 1993, let the world know that they are aware of these dirty tricks being perpetrated by the Giuliani campaign, and that they are in New York to make sure that there is a fair election, and they're not there to check immigration status. So the Department of Justice and the INS at the time, Immigration and Naturalization Service, felt it had to put out a memo to the public to tell them, don't worry, we're not checking your immigration status when you're voting. If you're a citizen, you get to vote. You don't have to bring like your passport and your naturalization papers with you to the polls. Because in the minds of people who just recently immigrated, who are already scared of the police state or what they think is the police state in America, being told that, hey, better bring and put in your back pocket your citizenship papers, which no other citizen in America has to do, that could convince a group of people not to vote. And it did. So those voter suppression tactics, which Rudy Giuliani used then, is just another page out of the playbook of the Republicans who try in various ways to suppress the vote, intimidate the vote, suppress the vote, pass laws to make it harder to vote, not easier to vote, set up all these barriers and hurdles that have to be jumped through and jumped over in order to vote, instead of making it easy, right? Show your ID, maybe a biometric reader, use something like an ATM machine and vote over the course of a week. And then it's all safely and securely collected. That's what should happen in this country, like in other countries. But no, we've got to do like this paper ballot, wait in line. God forbid we make it easy on anybody by mailing in a ballot and not objecting to it. We have to register months in advance. You know, you can't register the week of or the day of, I can register to get on a plane with one of these clear apps with biometric readers to make sure I'm not a terrorist. Why can't I register to vote on the same day? Why can't I change my precinct if I've moved and I have forgotten? Why are we making it so darn hard to vote? Because the more people to vote, the more people that are likely to vote Democratic. And if they vote Democrat, the Republicans lose. That's why they lose national office over and over and over again. Watching these three ghouls chuckle on Rudy Giuliani's podcast, which is really just a long infomercial for him to collect money, punctuated by a little bit of content where he has other Republican ghouls, chuckling like the best of Hillary Clinton, best of Joe Biden's son, or whatever else they want to talk about. Here's the reality, folks. Talking to you, Rudy Giuliani, Bannon, Lake, you don't win national office. You don't win national elections, or the public vote for a reason. Because you're out of step, because your fascist policies don't work. And here we have a moment, a Freudian slip, where a politician told the truth in Rudy Giuliani telling the truth about Republican dirty tricks to suppress the vote. We're going to keep following all the dark corners of the internet and weirdo podcasts to make sure we follow the people that were at the heart of the Jan 6 insurrection, like Rudy Giuliani, who were in the Willard Hotel, who were in the war room along with Bannon and others and Mike Flynn to help stop the peaceful transfer of power and to stop the will of the people from being implemented and Joe Biden being elected. And Rudy Giuliani running around state house to state house trying to convince people not to certify the vote, to investigate non-existent voter fraud in order to put his boss, Donald Trump, back in power as he clung to power, making phone calls and making appearances in battleground states like Georgia, where Giuliani is a target of a criminal investigation. Jack Smith and his 3 or 4 grand juries, where Rudy Giuliani is the target of investigation. But you'd never know it to watch Rudy Giuliani host his own podcast, right? You'd think he was what he claims to be, America's mayor, the 9/11 mayor. He lost that title a long, long time ago when he threw in his lot with Donald Trump and the rest of them. And we just showed you the clip of a self-revealing moment for Rudy Giuliani. I watch him I report him to you. I talk about things at the intersection of law and politics as a practicing trial lawyer and national trial strategist. That's what I do. I bring him to you on the MeidasTouch network. If you like what I'm doing, you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up. Write a comment. I do read them. It keeps my content coming to you uninterrupted. On Wednesdays and Saturdays, I co-anchor a podcast on the called Legal AF on the MeidasTouch network. And you can get it on YouTube. You can get it on anywhere, any of the platforms where you get your audio podcasts from. And if you like what I'm doing, you can follow me on social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.